right, virtual town hall meeting tonight. State Representative Jennifer Gross, and it's good to see everybody out there. Hello to Brian. I think Jonathan joined us. Hey, Jonathan, how you doing, man?
And, hey, everybody.
How you doing?
Thank you, Jennifer, for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much.
Absolutely. It's the highlight of my weekend when I'm with you guys once a month.
Well, it's our highlight, too, and we really appreciate you stepping in here tonight. So, State Rep out of the 45th District, so thanks again. And we'll do just like a little bit like a town hall type of a meeting or something here. So, I have in my hands these questions. Question number one. Now, I thought what we would do to start this off is I really don't know a whole lot about the Ohio budget, and I know that it's massively huge. We collect in taxes $100 billion a year, so I don't think anybody really knows where does the money come from, where does it go, how you divvy it all up, and everything like that. So let me just get that started with a couple of questions from you. I don't quite understand. Do you guys work with let's say a template or something from last year, and you just kind of fill in the numbers through a template, or is something different?
So the first thing, Joe, is that we wait for the governor's budget. So the governor hands us his budget. This year it was due by February 3rd. So we moved, we were working in committees. We were hearing testimony from people. The speaker gets to choose how the process is going to run. Previous speakers have selected subcommittees. So there was an HHS subcommittee, there was an energy subcommittee, and then there's finance, of course, which hears everybody. But what this Speaker Huffman, did was he broke the standing committees and he made an extra one, Medicaid, which I'm the chair of. And he sent the things that people are requesting in the budget through those committees. So for instance, the people that were going to ask, say, the hospitals, as we increased the hospital franchise fee from approximately 3% to 5.63%. That is a long story. We can talk about that maybe another time. But the hospitals came and made their request before the health committee, and I'm part of that. But Medicaid requests all came through my committee. So we had hours and hours and hours of testimony. We have long-term care facilities that we fund totally with taxpayer money, and those people will come. And then there are certain things like our elderly in nursing homes get $50 per month to spend on extras like, I don't know, hairstyle or just extras. And right now that was $50. They requested $100, and they wanted $50 more, which would have increased our budget millions. So those types of requests come through our committee, and then they send in their requests and they make amendments, and they ask us to submit those amendments.
So the starting point, Jennifer, I'll just interrupt you here for 1 second. So the starting point when you're doing the budget, everything is coming from the governor, right? He's got the skeletal outline of it and everything, and then you guys would fill in, the state lawmakers fill in some of the gaps or something, and
But after he gives his budget, it goes to LSC, and they write up an analysis. That analysis, the Legislative Service Commission. So we wait on that. That'll come out and say exactly line by line where things are going to go, how much he wants to spend on education, how much he wants to spend expanding vision, vans for vision for elementary school kids, and paying for glasses for children who don't have glasses. Yeah, I mean, it can be that specific. That particular program came through his budget in the Ohio Department of Health. All those people then get the opportunity to go before the health committee, Medicaid, energy, and defend what their request is. And so the chairs of those committees, and that's all online. You can go to the Ohio channel or the ohiohouse.gov, and you can watch all of the testimonies before finance and see the requests.
Okay. All right, so you have that skeletal outline or whatever, and then the chairman of the different committees and everything fight for those numbers. Either they might say, well, we need more, or they're happy with the numbers or something along those lines. Yeah.
The directors of the requests. So an organization, for instance, the ALS Association, I'm spacing Lou Gehrig's disease. Those people requested $1 million, which, I mean, ALS is extremely expensive. They did not request more money, but they came to defend their request for $1 million. Things like that. So they come before the committee. They ask the chair to fight for their amendment and fight for their request. It's up to the chair and then all the members to submit their amendments if they agree with them. And then finance and the speaker, leadership brings everybody in. In this case, the speaker brought me in, and I defended the amendments for Medicaid in about 4.5 hours before the leadership and the speaker. And they took, I would say, about 75% of my requests for amendments. We cut a lot of money in Medicaid, but that was always my assignment. What they do with those cuts is then left up to leadership and the speaker after that.
Okay, so very good. Let's look at and what I want to do also is anybody in the chat, whether it's YouTube or Rumble, please chat. We really appreciate it. We love it. So and we'll get to those right away. So we want to make you part of the show. Okay, so we have a chat right now. So let's just piggyback off of this for a minute, if we could. It says, yeah. Why were there changes to child support that LSC admitted would increase costs?
I don't know that
thoughts
specific.
On that? Yeah.
I don't know that specific request, and I don't know that is absolutely true. So I'd need to see that. I'm not saying it's not. I just am unaware of that particular. And in child support in the budget shouldn't. I mean, there are a lot of things that we do in the budget that are not financial, and so we can get to why I voted the way that I voted. I was one of 6 who voted no. But it's a budget. And so it's the way we spend state money. If child support affected state spending, I could see why it would be in there. A lot of people will try to get their bills through in the budget. And a lot of things that do come into the budget have nothing to do with spending. That's why it's over 5,300 pages long.
Wow, that's a big, that is a big budget. Okay, let's talk. I want to do a few of the breakdowns here on the budget just so we get a feel for what this is, okay? So, according to the information I got off the internet from ChatGPT, so hopefully that guy's accurate.
Grok is better.
Yeah, Grok is better. Okay, yeah. So the revenue here, 32% went for education. 32%. So if we have a $100 billion budget, that's $32 billion, okay? We'll just keep it round numbers here. Medicaid was 26%. Jails, 11%. Health and Human Services, 8%. And state revenue distribution was 6%, okay? And then I also, so if we have $100 billion in a round number, we're talking $32 billion for education, $26 billion out of the budget for Medicaid, $11 billion for the jails, $8 billion for Health and Human Services, $6 billion for state revenue distributions, and there's other categories, but those are the big ones. Now the federal portion is about 1/3. Okay, so
terrible,
and most of it is cut.
Can we just stop?
Okay, sure, take over. So basically 1/3 is the federal, but most of it is for Medicaid.
So the federal government has us by the nose at $1 out of every $3 we spend. So are we autonomous? If 33% of our budget, and we increase that, and we'll talk about issue 2, I hope later on, because we draw down federal money, and what that means is for every dollar we spend, we pull more from the federal government. And let me remind you, the federal government spending is your money, just like state money is your money. So every time we pull down, quote unquote, pull down money from the federal government, we are spending more money, and federal government is becoming more bloated and bigger. So it's your legislature's responsibility to be autonomous and sovereign as a state. If we are 33% indebted to the federal government, are we sovereign? Can we survive? I'm just going to leave that out there.
Yeah, I don't think we can. That's what always amazes me, because the federal government's $36 trillion in debt, and then we say that the state budget has to balance itself, but it can't balance itself unless it has the federal funds.
Right.
So it's like,
and can I stop you there too, Joe? We balance the budget. We take your money, and every single budget we increase spending. So if I'm going to buy a car, and you're going to give me the money because you're so generous, you're going to give me $10,000 to buy a used car. And then you say to me, but Jen, if you need $5 million, I'll go ahead and give that to you too. Basically, what we're doing with the budget is every year we spend within our revenue that's coming in. We spend what we can. We spend to the dime to balance the budget so that it's balanced, but we keep increasing it. So that's why, for me, a conservative, when we're bringing in more revenue and we don't give any back to you in the form of income tax relief or property tax relief, yet our economy is doing fantastic in Ohio. We're bringing in massive amounts of revenue, but we were unable to decrease our spending in the legislature to give it back to you. That's what I hope everybody listening here. The government is not your savior. The government should not be your savior, and you've got to hold your government accountable. I told you I was feisty.
No, you gotta absolutely do that. So let's just
Joe, can I get a question in?
Oh yeah, sure. Go ahead, Brian.
Jennifer, how much of the spending was new services, or was it just an awful lot of covering the inflationary costs? Do we have any idea how much was just to cover inflation?
It's a good question, Brian. It could be inflation, and I would argue, and let me back up just a little. Let me give credit where credit is due. The speaker ran a fantastic process, and Chairman Stewart ran a fantastic finance committee. It's why I didn't request to be on finance, actually, because the expectation when you're on finance is that you will vote yes on the budget. And I knew that I could not be being a member of the committee, I need to be able to make that decision independently and autonomously. And to a speaker, his finance committee needs to all vote yes, unless they're Democrats. And of course, all the Democrats voted no. But you asked me about, how much. They would say it was largely inflation, okay? But I would also say to you, we have excess spending. So if we're spending above what we should be spending already, and then I say to you, yeah, well, but I have to spend 3.5% or whatever, 2.8% inflation rate more, but I'm already overspending. Do you see how you could say, well, Jen, it's only in the inflation rate, but I would argue that we aren't spending our money wisely in the get-go. We're still spending for extra things we shouldn't be spending. If we give 3.5% on top of that, then that's just 3.5% more on top of stuff we shouldn't have been spending. I mean,
Jennifer, I see that at the local level too, and my concern at the local level, at the public sector is growing to so fast that it's exceeding the private sector's ability to pay for the services.
Correct. I mean, Brian, what a great point. What average person who is working for a capitalistic company, not the government, who always gets inflation as their raise every year? Let me tell you, my husband's an amazing designer, an industrial designer. But for years, he worked for a publicly held company, and his raises were 1% to 2%. It wasn't because he wasn't a good performer. That was one of the highest raises given in his department. So if every year the average person is getting 1% or 2%, and the inflation's going up 3.5% or 3%, then obviously in 2 years, inflation went up 6%. My husband's bringing home 4%. We are still 2% out of our pocket because we're still spending for food. We're still spending to pay gas prices. We're still, all of that. And so I'm kind of tired of hearing the government say, well, we need to increase inflation. Or how about this? The budget increased salaries for everybody. There's there's an amendment in there that increased salaries. Look, our judges are paid 40th in the nation, and that to me is unconscionable. Our judges do need to be duly compensated, but not everybody needed a raise, and so they shoved that in as well.
Well, let's talk about that for a second.
I take that back. They put in a commission.
But Jennifer, what we saw happening in Lake County, and it happened throughout the state, though, was the with the revaluation of the property values. We had 30% increase in property values. There were people that were getting anywhere from 30, sometimes 50% increase in their property taxes, and when you're on fixed incomes, that can be devastating. Absolutely devastating.
Let's review that, Brian. Let me just back you up a little bit. 30% increase valuation did not equul 30% increase in tax. So
yes, no, hold on. I said there was wait a minute. I would concur with that.
I'm not defending it. I just want to be clear.
Yeah, but I can tell you that there are many people in Lake County that had a 50% increase in their property values, especially if you lived along the lake, where they increased the average cost of or the average valuation of an acre of land to $750,000 an acre. And what happened was there was a big money grab in Lake County for all of these taxing authorities, the schools and the county government and the 54 different taxing authorities we had. No one even thought about giving money back to the taxpayers.
I know, I do. That's why I'm so...
Somehow or another, the taxpayers are always left out in the dark when it comes to the money.
Well, and I'm a taxpayer too, but I guess I'm...
Yeah, I guess we all are. But, just piggybacking off of that, what you guys were talking about for a minute. So if inflation is 3.5% and you're getting a 1 or 2% pay raise, so you're falling behind there, and then the 30 to 50% increase in your property valuations, which is still going to equate to a lot more money that you're dishing out. Okay, so it's taking from all of us Ohioans. That's the problem. Now let me ask you this: you got $100 billion budget or whatever. And I know it gets divvied out, and you guys have a good time with it and everything. But is there any talk? Yeah, is there any talk about decreasing that $100 billion? Get it down to $90 billion. Get it down to $80 billion. Why is it? Is there any talk like that going on at the State House?
I cut spending in Medicaid, and like I said, I always knew that the speaker then could take that savings, and I fully expected it would be put in education. Because we're moving to the Ed Choice. We're moving full steam ahead in Ed Choice. And you might have seen on Fox News today that we're having higher college graduation or high school graduation. I forget whether it was college or high school. Now that we're starting to see the benefits of Ed Choice. But I love that question because Representative Lear and myself and others, it was called the Penny Jordan. And all we really wanted was a 1% cut in every department. 1% per year.
There you go.
1% per year for every department. And that, we feel that's reasonable. And we take that savings and we return it back to the taxpayer. But no one even entertained that idea at all. And then, how about property tax relief? Do you guys want to talk at all about that 30% that the schools are allowed to keep in their savings account, and the rest is supposed to come back to the taxpayer in the form of $4.2 billion in property tax relief? That's what they told the members. But I am tired of a government that says, I'll give you $1 tomorrow for a cheeseburger today. The hope was we had no guardrails around this. Are you guys familiar with it? Shall I go into what that is?
Well, let me preface it a little bit, and you tell me if I'm wrong, and maybe this will help with people watching as well. Okay, from what I understand, so the public schools in the past were allowed to keep as much of the excess money that they had. Okay, so now this bill would say it's limited to 30%.
Correct. 30% of their
I'll give you a real world example, like Strongsville. Strongsville City Schools had a $75 million surplus, and they put a levy on the ballot a couple years ago. It was defeated because of some Strongsville GOP really fought it hard, and they uncovered that. Okay, so they had $75 million. Their operating expenses were $75 million, so they had 100% of the money they needed, and they were putting another levy on the ballot. Okay, so now they would be only be able to keep 30% for the following year, correct?
But it's 30% of their operating budget. So if Strongsville's operating budget was $250,000, you're going to see, what is that, 14, 21? You're never going to see any of that money because all they have is less than 30% in savings. They're allowed to keep 30% of their general operating budget. And in this particular time, about 123 schools don't even have 30%. So anyone who's in a school district that had no more or had less than 30%, those people aren't going to see property tax relief. And in my school district, we have 90, I believe at the time, don't quote me on this, but we had about 92 million in savings, but our budget, their operating budget's 221 million per year. So it'd be about 63 million, and the rest is supposed to come back to the taxpayer. But they could move that around to a facilities fund or move it around and spend
well,
it. Right?
that's what I don't understand.
That's
if you've
what
got
they'll
excess money, you're going to find a place to hide it, right? You're going to find a place to hide it, or you got a treasurer there who's can manipulate it within the financial statements that you're not going to find it. Or worst case scenario is spend the darn money. If you have 50 million extra and the state's going to come for it, spend it. Well, are they going to give it back, or are they going to spend it on something? They're going to spend it on something, right?
That hits the nail on the head.
I could have come back, guys. I could have come back to my voters and said, "You're going to get $38 million back in property tax relief," but it would be more like, "I hope you're going to get tax money back," because we don't know how it's going to look. There are no guardrails around how that money has to be. That it says they shall. But there was and a lot of people voted according to the Senate's going to fix it. And I hope they do. But the Senate is not as conservative as we are. And we passed it as is. And again, I can't vote. I have to vote on what's before me. I can't vote hoping the Senate's going to fix what we left undone. And my promise to you was property tax relief, income tax relief. This is a spending budget. Our economy is roaring. We are very solid. We have AAA rating in Ohio. And yet the sacrifice that we should have done as a legislature is to give you back some type, at least the homeowner. Or how about this? How about all of us that are under 65? We didn't get it. How about everybody over 65 that lived in their home for 20 years got it? If we couldn't afford it all, how about if we did every homeowner, their dwelling that they live in, if they own 5 homes, they don't get it on all, they get it on the one they live in. How about if we did that? But we didn't guarantee anybody property tax relief in this budget. That is my heartburn, because I'm a people rep. I am a representative of the people. I always have been, and I can't change. I mean, I'm in hot water, I'm sure. Look, the speaker, if I was voting yes on a budget because I love the leadership, well, let's not say love, but I respect the leadership and I respect the speaker, then I would have voted yes every day and twice on Sunday. But I can't vote yes on a budget when my district is saying no, 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 and my people didn't get property tax reform and they didn't get income tax reform. It's a budget, it's spending. And we increased spending. There was nothing. There were good things. There were pro-life $10 million tax write-offs for pro-life crisis pregnancy centers. That was good. But again, 10 million versus 100 billion. Is that a fair exchange? We're a pro-life state, regardless of, I know how people voted, but I still believe that we are, that a lot of money came into Ohio and misled Ohioans when they voted on issue 1. And the reality is that isn't a fair exchange.
No, it's not. And, that is not a fair exchange. I'm going to let Jonathan say a word or two, and we'll get back to. I think you wanted to say something possibly about that school and the 30%. I mean, that obviously, I don't think any of that money would come back to us anyhow. But what do you think?
The risk.
Well, you hit the nail on the head with the whole use it or lose it philosophy behind most of these institutions. And they've operated that way for so long. It's hard for me to assess where to begin with this. It seems to me that there are so many things broken about not only the system, but how we think about the system. So, a couple of things. One is if somebody approached you and said that they're trying to sell you a Kia and tell you it's worth $750,000, you're going to balk immediately because you know the real value of that thing. I'm going to use an analogy here and then talk about something amazing that Trump did during his first administration that I only recently learned about. So I've worked in construction. It's how I put myself through college. And I know the real value of things. Construction is an area of the world where it's rife with fraud and overbilling. There are many instances, and I think most people can imagine this, that's why I use it as an analogy, where you get billed for a section of freeway or a bridge or something, or anybody with any common sense knows that the $750 million bill is like 80% bloat. The problem with many of these organizations, these institutions that we're funding with taxpayer dollars, is that nobody ever bothers to go in, or nobody can, I don't think, go in and do those types of assessments. And so we have these top-down structures, and I'm going to include Medicaid and education and all of them, where we've somehow allowed ourselves to be fooled into this idea that $17,382 national average per student is somehow reasonable for maybe 25 to 30% literacy rates. And actually, Ohio is one of the worst in the nation right now for education. So this idea, we have school districts charging $40,000+ per student, and then we unfortunately allow ourselves to get caught up and stuck in the weeds talking about whether or not there should be this budget and if 30% gets put back. I think just wipe the whole slate clean and go back to the beginning. Somebody has to do it at some point and say, you're completely wrong. I don't care when it happened. I don't care if it was 1962 or 5 years ago. It's not reasonable for you to teach barely literates at $40,000 per year. That's one frustration I have. But here's the thing that Trump did that to me is sort of a linchpin, a catalyst to this whole thing. So apparently, prior to Trump's first administration, the VA hospitals throughout the United States had a massive wait list of people trying to get in. First of all, anybody who is a supporter and fan of our veterans, I suggest pausing right there and just be irate and furious that got to the point that it did. That there was a huge wait list. And people kept pushing and pushing and pushing. We don't have enough money. We need more staff and we need more administration. And Trump finally came in. He cut the budget, but increased the efficiency of the veterans hospitals and decreased that wait list for our veterans to almost nothing, and at a lower budget. Then, unfortunately, Biden came in and it skyrocketed back up again with massive bloat and overspending. So we have a number of and I am going to pause in a moment here and ask for Representative Gross's feedback on all this stuff. But I mean, people keep talking a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but also seriously about Doge Ohio. At what point, for heaven's sakes, do we actually get the chance to look at these administrations and these bloated enterprises and just draw the line in the sand and say enough? And there's one more piece to it that really bothers me. And schools are a glowing example of this, or glaring example, I think is the word choice. And that is when there are cuts, administrative cuts are the last ones to go. So you have these bloated administrations in many of these endeavors. You cut 3%, and what goes? Service, the hands-on staff, the quality of goods and services, all of that stuff, and they keep these horrendous, bloated administrations intact. We have to tackle all that stuff, or we're just going to keep spending on last place garbage.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
So I
if
do
you, yeah,
want
go
to
ahead.
push back on your comment about us being the bottom of the barrel with education, though, Jonathan, because I think you have to be careful with what statistics you're looking at. We are a red state. Education is a blue, largely liberally controlled entity. And so we do actually rank above average in most metrics, but we do have to be careful. Somewhere between, around 1920, which still we should be seventh because we're the seventh largest. I agree. But we also have to, there's so many variables in there with DEI and the left getting involved in our education. I mean, we have some school districts that are, we've seen the parents and the porn they're allowing, or were. If it's not still going on, it's gone underground. If it's still going on, so that it doesn't get out in the news. We've seen some of that in our schools. Certainly that did not benefit our students, but I think by and large, if we allow teachers to be teachers and we stop forcing teachers to teach to tests, I believe that good teachers that are not indoctrinated by wokeism, could actually, they're amazing. Teachers with licenses learning how to teach our students. I met a retired teacher just this last week, and I said, we miss you. She's fairly young and she's retired. And I'm like, we need you back. We need teachers that teach to world history and all those kinds of things, not woke agenda and porn for junior high school students.
Yeah, we need the good teachers. Got to get the good teachers back. Hey, I'm going to switch around here and let's go to talk about some of your House bills, okay? So these sponsored, let's talk about House Bill 12. You sponsored this, the Jeff, Dave, and Angie Patient Right to Try Act.
Yes.
Patients with terminal illnesses would have access to experimental treatments not yet approved by the FDA. House Bill 12. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about that. Also, I found out that there's actually 12 states that have something very similar to House Bill 12.
They modeled after our bill. Isn't that amazing? 12 are trying. Wouldn't it be amazing? We ran this bill with OAMF last General Assembly. It would be unconscionable to see another state pass our bill before we passed it. And let's talk a little bit about it. It safeguards it, and it's not just you don't have to be dying. It is a right to try, but it safeguards a consenting patient's ability to obtain a prescribed medication from their healthcare provider without interference from a pharmacist, provided there are no life-threatening contraindications with the drug or moral objections from the pharmacist. This applies to outpatient pharmacies, hospitals, and nursing homes. It prevents the pharmacists, hospitals, and nursing homes from refusing to dispense a medication to a consenting patient based on scientific objection. Because one of the things that they say is, we had a scientific reason to only allow one treatment for COVID and people died in the hospitals. I'm sorry, I'm calling foul on that. It shields prescribers from license-related repercussions when they prescribe a drug off-label to a consenting patient, unless the prescription involves willful negligence. This provision in the bill doesn't prevent a patient from suing their doctor if they've been harmed, and it upholds. Listen to this. It upholds the provider's freedom of speech and prohibits licensing boards from punishing providers or revoking their licenses for expressing opinions on the risks and benefits of effectiveness of drugs or any treatment that diverges from the board's stance. That's happening in Ohio. This is crucial for ensuring that sacred patient-provider relationship is protected. I posted on X, if people want to go look at my X page, at Jennifer4Rep. And I posted Dr. Bowden. And, people are afraid to go to the hospital now. I mean, people are going to wait until forever to go to the hospital because they are afraid to get care, because they don't know that they're going to, they're just afraid. And even Dr. Bowden said so herself. And she was a hospital physician at Methodist in Houston. So
Okay,
Yeah.
so where does that bill stand right now? I think you said you're going to hear some
This
proponent
week,
testimony.
Wednesday, if people want to write proponent testimony, we're going to do proponent testimonies in Health Committee on Wednesday, I believe, and those can be submitted at Rep 45 at ohiohouse.gov, but they do have to fill out a consent form. I mean, it's not just their testimony. They have to fill out a special form, and that would be entered into the public record for the bill. We're going to take 5 live, or maybe 7 or 8 live testimonies for proponents, and then 7 or 8 live opponent testimonies to make it even there. And then I'd love it if you guys and all your listeners would begin working on the committee, as well as their members, to vote yes on this bill when it does come to the floor. I do believe it will. And then we need to start working on the Senate so that they don't block it and slow roll it like they did last time.
That's crazy. That would be unconscionable to do that.
Jennifer, was that the ivermectin and hydrochloroquine
Yes.
issue where they
So-
wouldn't?
So there were actually people who wanted a drug called budesonide, which is a very common nebulizer treatment given to asthmatics and other people that have lung issues, that were denied in Ohio hospitals. They were, yes, my friend Julie Smith, Jeff Smith is the Jeff, Dave, and Angie Right to Try bill. Jeff died in my hospital here in Westchester. Julie Smith is his wife. She has been a friend of mine for over a decade. And she's the one that fought and paid $7,000 to an attorney in New York, and then got a right to give Jeff ivermectin. He began to actually improve with ivermectin, and then another judge removed the authority for the ivermectin, and then Jeff died. It's not to say, I mean, I'm a clinician, and it's not to say that ivermectin is the only cure, because I don't believe that, excuse me. But we do need to have off-label drugs. When the FDA approves any drug, you guys, any drug, all they're saying is, one, it's therapeutic for whatever the drug company sought an indication for, that one thing, and it is safe for human consumption. That's it. So if a doctor says, I'm going to write this drug, excuse me, for something else, then a doctor should have that right. And let me end with this. When a doctor writes a prescription and they go to a pharmacy and the pharmacist says, I'm not going to fill that, who does the patient, when the patient keeps getting sicker and sicker, who does the patient go back to? The pharmacist or the doctor?
Yeah, it goes doctor.
The pharmacist
It goes to
didn't
the
do
doctor.
an assessment. They didn't take care of the patient. They didn't put their hands on that patient. They didn't touch that patient. They are a dispenser of a medication. Yes, part of the team, but they are not the provider, and those lines need to be clearly drawn about the team that we have, and a pharmacist is not a medical doctor.
Where was
Hey,
the
Joe.
pressure applied to the pharmacist for they didn't supply what the doctor wanted? They must have had pressure from their organization.
It
Is that-
could be corporate, like the CVS's of the world. I don't know. It was obviously pharma wanting remdesivir and, ventilators for the one sole treatment. I mean, I'll ask you guys, if any of you out, hopefully you don't, but if you have blood pressure issues, is there only one blood pressure medicine? How about diabetes? Is there only one diabetic medication? No. But for COVID, the accepted only standard of care was remdesivir and a ventilator. And if you asked for anything else, and the poor doctors sitting there watching their patients die, Dr. Merrick, his bottom lip, he was an intensivist ICU doctor watching his patients die because the hospital he worked for would not allow him to treat them. I can only imagine being a physician, and Dr. Papanik will be testifying this week for me. She worked at a very large Columbus hospital. She was not allowed to do anything other than what the quote unquote planned care was in her hospital, and she resigned. God bless her, because a lot of doctors just sat by helplessly watching their patients die.
Yes.
And
Jonathan, did you have something you wanted to say? Go ahead.
I do. 2 things. Clearly, we've already seen the politicization of this whole protocol regimen. You called it planned care. So, in theory, we all assume that the concept is that the hospital has somehow figured out the most efficient, most effective process for whatever it is. And then they're stipulating, presumably, because they want to avoid lawsuits, this one procedure or one process for whatever the illness is. We've already seen that politicized. And anybody who doesn't already know the track record of remdesivir, I suggest looking into its clinical trials somewhere in one of the on the continent of Africa. Some nation was selected. It was horrendous. I want to say it was the reports were 53% death rate from taking the thing, and then somehow that turned into what I consider to be politicians like Fauci's. Calling Fauci a doctor is nonsensical in my book, but to take what should be an organic process of hospitals figuring out what the best thing to do is, and then manipulate that in any way is anathema to the way that patients should expect care from hospitals. And we need to go back, by the way, to that whole Hippocratic oath of
let
doctors.
me ask you this, Jonathan. Let me ask you this. Are you exactly the same as your two other cohorts on the show? Are you, if
That's
your
a great
doctor
point. I
is
was
the
going to get there
doctor,
as well. Yep.
You go in to see your doctor, and the doctor says, sorry, here's your recipe. You're going to get the same treatment that Brian gets, and Brian's going to get the same thing Joe gets. And you go, but wait a minute, that doesn't work. Sorry. If it doesn't work for you, too bad. This is the standard of care. You get this, nothing else. You go, but wait a minute, my blood pressure, it's not working. And you go, sorry, that is exactly what we did. Remdesivir did not work on every patient, and they asked for other things, and they denied any other medication for these patients. It is time for people to understand and speak up. It is time for people to know that people died because they gave no other options. Well, who does that?
Yeah, it was shocking to the system because we're not used to that.
And I gotta throw it back on us. How does your legislature, both the House and the Senate, how do we justify not passing a bill like this? How do we justify it? And why is Ohio not looking at it and going, hey, you know what? She's right. She's wrong a lot. Jennifer Gross and Rep Gross is wrong a lot, but on this one, she's right.
Well, I say again, we got 12 states that have already passed it, including very liberal California and New York. I mean, if those states could pass it, and you got 10 other states, so let's just get it done already, right?
Right.
It's pure common sense.
I don't know that it's been passed, but they're probably carrying the bill.
Oh, okay.
It's going to take a long time for us to get our confidence back in the medical system, though.
That's right. And I think this bill does that. This bill, I mean, the people that are fighting me, the hospital association, the pharmacists, if they could only see past their own nose and realize this bill would build faith in their own system. Instead of making me the bad guy and making me the one who's fighting for freedom and liberty and the health of Ohioans, how about we work together and we link arms together and we give it a chance?
Yep. Yeah, we got to give it a chance.
Yeah, I'm completely. Yeah. Let me follow up on that. I'm completely on board and I'm very supportive. And by the way, listening audience, if you're not already following Rep Gross and OAMF, Ohio Advocates for Medical Freedom, you're going to find Stephanie Stock behind that. They're both very worth following. Follow this issue. Follow Rep Gross and her efforts to get this thing over the goal line. But actually, let me pause there. There's more to it, but there is a message, Joe, I want to bring to your attention that's in the chat. Somebody's actually trying to get Rep Gross's attention. I've been messaging, so this is me kind of breaking into the discussion of medical protocol and planned care. I think this actually goes back a few minutes in the conversation, but I don't want to miss the opportunity to get somebody's question answered on the show. They're asking about, again, this is this Ray OFR. Why were there changes to the child support that LSC admitted would increase costs, a few others? And then I asked for clarification in the chat. By the way, that's your cue, audience. If you're not on Rumble or wherever you are chatting, get your questions answered. We're going to push and try and understand and get questions answered to the best of our ability. But this one, Kent, if you could bring it up, the last one that Ray sent, LSC admitted it would increase costs to JFS. There it is. The changes take away questions for parents with shared parenting orders. I don't actually understand this, but I'm going to put my thoughts on hold and see if we can get this answered.
This is exactly something that should not even be in the budget. Okay, this is probably related to the parenting bill that Representative Rodney Creech has. And to me, this shouldn't even be there. This needs to be vetted. And obviously, when you've got someone asking questions, why is this in the budget? Why is parenting agreements in the budget? I'm asking you guys. I mean, does it belong there?
No idea.
And here's the other thing. It's hard to vote on a budget that's 5,300 pages. I didn't even know that was in there. But I voted no. But part of the reason I voted no is because I don't vote on things and I want to find out later what's in it. Now I'm finding this is in there. And I can assure you someone put it in there. So someone in the legislature or somebody in a department wanted it in there. So who put it in there? And what I mean, if it increases cost to JFS, I'm against that. And was it someone who was selfishly motivated? So they put it in there. I'm not saying maybe it isn't related to Rep. Creech's bill. Let's not say that I was just saying Rep. Creech. I'm not. But I don't know. He's the only one I know that was doing parenting stuff. But if it's going to increase spending to the state, then I'm not okay with that because, as we know, I was not okay with increased spending. So if it's going to increase money for JFS, but I have to question, why is JFS involved in parenting in the first place? I mean, JFS is Medicaid, SNAP, TANF. So these are all social service systems. If it's going to increase costs, there's more to this than this is deeper than something we can answer on this call, I'm afraid.
Gotcha.
And they're going to need to.
I appreciate you making it. I appreciate you making an effort, Joe. Just to finish my train of thought.
Okay, we only have a few minutes, so I want to knock through a few other things here.
We really should talk about issue 2.
Yeah, let's talk about. I'm sorry. We got to move on. I'm trying to keep this, moving because we got a lot of things to cover, and then we got Corsi.
I know.
Dr.
Here
Jerome
I thought
Corsi
we were
coming
have enough to talk about.
Yeah. Oh, it never ends up like that. Okay, never ends up like that. Let's go to Ohio issue 2.
It's my fault. I'm sorry.
Okay, Ohio issue 2. This is going to be on the May 6th ballot, so we get to vote on it. A lot of people don't. That's right. You could vote now. You could vote early. You could vote May 6th. A lot of people don't even know there's an election coming up on May 6th. But this is a ballot constitutional amendment. $2.5 billion in bonds over the next 10 years to support local projects like roads, bridges, and sewer systems and things like that.
Stop. What does our transportation budget pay for? Roads, bridges, transportation. So now we have an issue on the ballot that pays for, yep, you guessed it. We spent $11.5 billion. We already passed the transportation budget, and now we're coming to the people asking for another $2.5 million. But let's go back a little bit. How did this ever get there in the first place? Democrat Governor Celeste put an emergency request on the ballot in 1987 because our roads were in great disrepair. So he put this constitutionally onto the ballot asking the people, look, we need to help with business. We need to do this. 1987. What is today? 2025. Back then, it was $500 million at $500 million. Okay? Then every 10 years since then, when the Democrat governor put it on the ballot, we have renewed that constitutional amendment every 10 years, asking you for more money. Why? And then people say, well, it's local projects. Well, so ODOT doesn't do local projects? They're not involved? They are involved. So it really muddies the water for the voter. The last one was $1.75 billion in 2014. And the last 7 governors 2 have been Democrats, 5 have been Republicans. So Republican governors, by and large, keep renewing this. So we're not innocent in this.
Well, let's talk about that for a second because I want to know the why behind it, okay? So to me, it doesn't make sense. You got a $100 billion per year budget, but why do you need another $2.5 billion? Actually, it's over 10 years, so that'd be $250 million per year. And
So
it's just, what is the purpose of it? Why are they doing it? It just seems totally stupid.
Slush fund.
Is
It's
that's it?
the
Is it a
bond-
slush fund, in your opinion? And that's, well, if you don't want to say or not, I'll say it. It's a
I'll
slush
tell
fund.
You guys, you have my voting record. I voted no to put this on the ballot. So obviously I'm against it. And the reason is because we already passed a transportation budget. We have 5 budgets. We have BWC, we have transportation, we have capital budget, we have the general revenue fund, this big behemoth we're doing now. And then we have one called the IC budget. That's illegal, has a bunch of legal fees in it. So we have 5 budgets already. This is a 6th revenue stream that the people of Ohio, so you're paying 6 revenue streams for budgets, and this goes in. So you'll hear people say, oh, it's only local projects. It's not. The transportation budget paid highways, roads, construction, maintenance, 7.5 billion, bridges and road repair, 717 million, public transit, local projects. This is in the transportation budget. Bridges, roads, transit for local government, 964 million, safety operations, ODOT, emergency tech, major projects, Brent Spence Bridge down here in Southwest Ohio. Why are we coming to you for more? Because we always do. We're just coming to you for more. I think you need to tell us, sorry, we're not going to pay it.
Well,
And
hopefully everybody votes no on it. But the thing is that you're raising bonds. I mean, that we got to pay that back with interest, so it's going to be more than $2.5 billion.
Yes, good point.
Over that period of time. And with a $100 billion budget, why is it that you have to raise bonds anyhow for the state? We don't know where it's going. It's going to go to local projects, and then the auditors and that with the local projects are the ones who have to make sure that the money is being spent correctly. I mean, there's really no oversight.
Right.
The auditor in the state of Ohio, all he's doing is he's making sure that money is getting to the local government, and then the local government does whatever they want with it. This reeks of corruption. Corruption.
Is this all part of that Brown Stadium?
Oh, we didn't even talk about that.
Oh, we can talk about that pretty soon, real quick. And that'll be next. We're going to talk about that next.
So that's not even this. Okay.
No, it's not this.
We
This
have
is
4
for
hours
roads,
tonight.
bridges, sewers. That's what this is for. Roads, bridges, and sewers. Roads, bridges, and sewers. La da 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 da. Da 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 da.
We can always look, and that's what people say to me, well, but we need it for infrastructure. The reps will say, we need it for infrastructure. It's like, well, then what did our transportation budget do? I mean, like,
Right.
we've got to stop spending. Look, I'm a David.
Oh, yes, you do. You got to
Where's
stop.
the existing infrastructure bill? Where's the existing infrastructure spending going? Because if you drive around Ohio, at least North
the
Ohio,
gas tax.
it was just a series of potholes and dilapidated, crumbling bridges. Where in the heck is all the billions of dollars going? And why do we keep
Well,
adding more money? It looks like
Here's a
Go
question,
ahead.
Jonathan. Here's a question I have for you. Why is there a website and people offering for you to get you signs to vote yes on issue 2 for your yard? If it was a constitutional amendment your legislature put on the ballot, why is there an organization asking you to vote yes on issue 2 signs in your yard? What would be the
because
one
people
reason,
make money off
gentlemen,
the slush fund.
that anybody would want to vote yes on issue 2 in government?
Why do people make
Starts
money
with an
off the
M.
slush fund?
What organization is it, by the way? Do you
Money.
know? Yeah,
Money.
Yeah.
So somebody's going to get contracts. Somebody's going to get, all of this. So
And there's really no way to police this. There's no
guys.
Can you hear me?
Joe, you're on mute.
Oh shoot! You cannot hear me. Can anybody hear me?
I can
Yes,
Joe,
hear
we
you're
can hear you.
muted.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, it seems
Jennifer,
Rep
can you
Rose
hear?
can't
Can you hear any of us or not?
Joe?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah,
I-
I can hear both you and Rep
I don't know
Rose.
if I did
Rep Rose
You're
anything.
can't hear
muted,
you.
Joe.
I
Well,
don't think.
you can't hear
Rep
me.
Rose, can you hear me?
Can you hear anybody?
I don't think she can hear any of us. Tech issues. Well, we're right at 8 o'clock anyway.
Can you guys hear me?
Not the way we want to go out. But
I hear you. Yes. I hear you. Yes. Yes, I hear you. But you can't hear me. And then we wanted to talk about the Cleveland Browns. Well, we could have that discussion real fast. Well, Jennifer Gross wouldn't be able to help us, though.
Without Jennifer, it's going to be a little difficult.
Jennifer Gross left, so hopefully she might try to come back. I don't see Dr. Corsi. I'm sorry. I don't see Dr. Corsi signing up. He is going to. Hopefully he'll check in today. I never had any contact with him. I did try to get a hold of him, but he never responded through email. So hopefully he is on. Is going to be joining us at 8 o'clock. I wanted to talk about election integrity and everything.
I'll text him.
Yeah, Representative Gross is really easy to speak to. She does a great job of explaining things.
Yeah, she does a fantastic job. Really appreciate her. And once a month coming on doing this, it's wonderful. We got to have her on as often as possible. Oh, wait a minute, maybe she came back. Can you hear me now?
Hello.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? No. Oh no.
I can hear her.
Hello.
Yes, I hear you, but let me try something here. I know, once in a while, I have problems with this. Once in a while.
There you go.
Oh, there. Can you hear us now?
I don't
Hello.
know. Yes.
Can you hear us now?
Can you hear us? No. No. Doggone it.
You may have to text her.
Now, let's try this.
Hello.
Hello.
Joe.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great.
I'm so sorry you went on mute, and did we lose everybody?
No, we're all still here. Okay, so we got a couple of minutes. I'm waiting for Dr. Jerome Corsi, and hopefully he'll be on. Talk about election integrity. But I want to talk about the Cleveland Browns while we have you here, okay? Let's talk about that whole stadium thing. So what's going on with the Cleveland Browns is the lawmakers, that's you and others like you, what is it? I think $600 million you want to give to the Haslams.
Not me.
Okay.
I voted no.
Okay, not you. That's good. But it is like $600 million that you want to give to the Haslams. And boy, I was reading into that, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. They have to reroute Ingle Road, Snow Road. They got to put in a walkway, an overpass walkway on some of these roads, and that's not even included in the $600 million.
It's
okay?
a $2.4 billion project.
To build the stadium is 2.4. They want us to pay 1.2 billion, right? Now
$600 million.
$600 million from the state. Tell me if I'm wrong. $600 million from the state, and then another $600 million from the county and local taxes.
I didn't know
Haslam.
that.
Yeah, Haslam. The $600 million is only from the state, and then another $600 million from the county and local cities and stuff to make
You know what else?
1.2 billion. And that doesn't even include the work that has to be done on some of those roadways, which is going to run probably hundreds of millions of dollars, I'm sure.
You know what else? While we were in the process, we got Paycor Stadium, which is the Bengals, and then FC Cincinnati. Look, I love all these teams. Okay, if you want to watch NFL, that's great. But again, we're doing all these other things in the budget, and I don't have a problem with the Haslams. I don't know them. Okay, they're the speaker likes them. I mean, look, I'm not against these ball teams, but I am against us doing stuff like this in a budget when we failed to help the taxpayers with property tax reform. And it didn't look good. It wasn't good. And I don't agree with it. And my understanding is not that the Haslams will go belly up or anything like that, God forbid, but they will, and the people of Ohio will end up taking the rest of the debt of that. So.
Yeah, it's It's way too much. Way too much. It's insane. I'm with you 100%. They say, all this economic development and everything. They got a nice stadium right there in Cleveland. Fix that up a little bit if you want to do anything. But I think it's going to be a complete disaster throwing it. I know you're down in Cincinnati, but it's close to where I live. I mean, I'm about 20, 25 minutes from it, or it's roughly 30 minutes. But the area is going to be so congested, so crowded. And then all you're doing is pulling away people from Beechwood or Independence or somewhere else who would be spending their money there at a bar or establishment, restaurant, and bringing them over to this location. So it's really not benefiting Ohio. It's not creating more wealth or anything like that. Haslam's have enough money to fund the project themselves. Bengals are asking for a handout from the state also. So that is true. They have more than enough money to fund themselves, and they should be funding themselves. They've got plenty of money. They're billionaires. I guess if you have a last thought, Jennifer, and then we're going to bring on Dr. Corsi and talk about our gold standard with the voting.
I just want to recommend this. It's called the Piglet Book from Buckeye Institute. They recommend a lot. They make some great recommendations in budget reform. And again, I will say I will continue to fight for the people of Ohio for what matters, and that's freedom and liberty and constitutional values. Like Jonathan's hat says, make Ohio constitutional again. So, and America constitutional again. So thank you for the opportunity always, you guys, to be with you. The time flies by, and I look forward to next month.
Yeah, we do too. Thank you. Thank you very much. God bless you.
God bless you. Thanks.
Well, that was terrific. That was terrific. How are you, Dr. Corsi? How are you? Florida. I'm jealous already.
Can't hear him.
Yeah, you know what? Okay, here's the problem. The microphone from your laptop is not the best. You're probably going to have to get closer to it, so we want to be able to hear everything you have to say. Yeah. Uh-huh.
We can't hear him at all.
Oh, okay. Hang on one second.
It looks like Joe can hear him, but we can't.
I can hear him, but you guys cannot. Okay, let me see. What is wrong here? Wow, let me see here.
Hopefully Kent can work some magic.
Shoot. What would be wrong? I don't know. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, what we're going to have to do is I am going to have, well, let me just try this one more time and see if we can get him in. I don't know why we have problems. Can you hear me? Can you, everybody else hear him or not?
No, I can hear you, Joe, but not Dr. Corsi.
Really? Oh, boy. Okay. No, you're okay. You're okay. You're okay. Don't touch anything on your end. It's on my end. Hang on one second.
Joe, in the interest of time, actually, Brian, I'm going to suggest I'm in the Rumble channel as well. I'm going to mute my mic and audio and switch over to Rumble. At least that way we can listen in and have some questions to ask. But I think you should go ahead, Joe, with this discussion with Dr. Corsi.
Well, I will, but if no one can hear it, then it's not working.
Well, I'm going to try the audio from Rumble because I've got that on my phone for the chat. I may be able to hear it there. Might be a slight delay, but at least I can get it, and we don't have to spend too much time tinkering with the tech.
Well, it might be as simple as him booting out and coming right back in and giving me a minute to fix fix it on my end. That might be what I can hear you, but nobody else can hear you. So nobody else can hear you. That's the problem. Okay, here let's do this, Dr. Corsi. I want you just to boot out. I'm going to just reset Zoom. So you got to give me 2 minutes, and then call right back in. Hopefully that takes care of it. All right. Okay, give me 2 minutes though. I got to reset everything. Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to try this, guys. But go ahead and talk a little bit while I'm doing this.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to make some comments here while you're working on rebooting Zoom. One of them goes to the very heart of the reason that the illustrious Brian Massey and Joe Miller and I do this once a week, and that is we the people of Ohio. Rep. Gross was talking about leaning on our legislature, which we should be able to comfortably and reliably do. And why in the heck aren't these bills passing? And why are we so frustrated when we don't have what we want and what we need from our hospital systems, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And ultimately, I have great respect for the work and efforts of Rep. Gross and other true conservatives in our legislature. However, it comes down to we the people. It comes down to us getting loud. You see the left doing it. They're relentlessly loud and badgering and bickering and pushing and prodding for every little everything that they want, however fanciful. On our side, we have to stop being so quiet. And what that means for this House Bill 12 and Rep. Gross and Ohio Advocates for Medical Freedom and everything like it, if you care about it, for heaven's sakes, get out there and get loud. Find Brian Massey and Leonard and the talks that they do out in the public talking about the impact of property taxes. Go and find them, fill the room, bring friends, learn things, petition your legislature. The more we learn to do that, the more likely we are to be able to fight back.
I agree 100% there, Jonathan.
Yeah, absolutely.
We must be more vocal.
Okay, give it a shot there, Doctor.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can you hear me?
Oh, there you go.
Now,
there he
yes,
is.
I hear you.
Loud and clear.
I want you to try this. Talk again.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Can you hear me now?
I think so. Everybody can hear him? Okay, wonderful.
Yes. Coming through loud and clear.
Coming through loud and clear. Wonderful. Okay,
Great.
Very good. Yeah, well, so I like to do these shows live because of things like this that happen every now and then. It's fine, but also, time constraints. It's like, and usually people are available on Sunday nights, so I can get a hold of them and talk. And I think there's something fun about just doing it live. Just let it fly.
It's going to be real. I mean, I'm here in Florida.
Okay.
We have Airbnb, and so I've got about 6 or 7 other people here that are getting set up for dinner. So this could be quite interesting as we get people coming in and out of the room.
That's okay. That's fine. Don't worry about that at all. As long as it doesn't distract us, as long as it doesn't distract you or anything. Hey,
I'll be fine.
We're going to talk tonight about the election integrity in Ohio, correct?
Right.
And so I'm going to let you just freewheel it, but we have the gold standard here in Ohio. Did you know that?
Yeah.
We have the absolute gold standard. Also, what I also want to say is, and I'm just going to let you freewheel it and we'll ask questions and stuff, but to me it seems like the corruption starts and ends with early voting. That's my opinion. And I know that Trump wants to make it so that you got to have an ID. You do it all in one day. You do paper ballots, and you wrap it up by midnight, and case closed. So if we ever get to that point, I think we'll be in good shape. But we're a long ways from that right now.
Well,
so go ahead.
Also, I mean, I spent a lot of time in Ohio before the 2024 election, and we actually had the Ohio Board of Election looking to see that we found a algorithm in the Ohio Board of Election voter registration database. The algorithm did permit the creation of these modified duplicate votes and they were there. If you go to God's Five Stones, our website, which is God, no apostrophe on the S, God's five FIVE spelled out, Stones, STONES, God's5stones.com, you'll see that we have a report on Ohio. And that report shows that there is an algorithm in Ohio. Now, of course, the Secretary of State told us in Ohio that, well, there was an algorithm, but it wasn't used. Well, they don't know it wasn't used. Okay, I mean, that's the problem, is that these algorithms allow fraud in mail-in voting. And Ohio has a lot of mail-in voting. And Ohio has a lot of duplicates in the voter roll. Ohio has not removed all of the non-citizens or the people who are, duplicate records, same address, same name, maybe even same phone number, or same age, but not the same address, or some other record has changed. And the possibility for there be voter fraud in Ohio exists. Now, in this past election, Ohio went very strongly for Donald Trump. But the fraud can occur in the down ballot elections, not just in the presidential election, but the election for Senate or House or even local elections, because these algorithms can be used to affect any election. Now, Ohio is, again, it's trying to ignore the fact that if there's a code in the database, which we found, then you can't presume that somebody has not entered that database and set in the possibility of fraud. Now, maybe this past year they didn't use it to the extent they could have used it. I think we chilled a lot of the use of the algorithm because we discovered it. But it's still there. And we're contesting elections. I'm working with Peter Ticktin, Ticktin, who's Donald Trump's personal attorney. He has known Donald Trump since high school. They went to military school together. Peter Ticktin's a brilliant lawyer, and he's bringing cases. We've got a case going in Florida right now of an election that I believe was stolen for Congress. I think we've seen elections stolen in Wisconsin that we can also prove. I'm doing a lot of work in Wisconsin. So what President Trump has done is he's handed the investigation over to Tulsi Gabbard. And I wrote an article on this on AmericanThinker.com, where the intelligence agencies are now getting involved. Because this is that's God's Five Stones you're showing right on the screen. If you pull down the state-by-state elections, you'll see that you can find Ohio's there, and we have a report on Ohio. And the Ohio report shows that there are algorithms, and that they are capable of being used to falsify votes and to cast in mail-in ballot schemes false votes. And this can't be ignored, because the algorithms are like finding a mathematical formula. And so therefore, just because Secretary of State does not want to acknowledge that they're there doesn't mean that we know they are there, and they can be used whenever the criminals decide they want to steal an election.
Well, let's just, for the fun of it, is there a possibility for us to see a little bit of what you're talking about if I click on your website somewhere?
Yeah. Click on the website.
Where should I go?
The top tab where it says State Voter Roll Analysis. That's
okay.
One of the top tabs.
Mm-hmm.
You go down there, and it's about, I think, number 5, as I recall, that is Ohio.
Okay.
It's Ohio voter rolls.
Right.
Then just click the Andrew Paquette preliminary report, or even the press release. Do the preliminary report. I'll show you the full report. Click Andrew Paquette preliminary report. Okay, and now you see the analysis of the voters. And what he's saying in the beginning of it is that we found in places like New York, and by the way, to see the full report, you have to click at the top and where it says the full report, hover over to the document below. You hover over the document below and you click on it, and press the outside to hide. Okay, to control the document. Okay, so at the top you can kind of go page to page.
Oh, you got 22 pages here. Okay.
Okay, well, don't do that. Go back and let's just do the press release, because the press release summarizes it.
Okay.
Press release is going to be easier to read and easier to do. So do state, and then go down to Ohio. and then do the press release. Well, wait a minute. My computer has been acting up over the weekend. I lost my mouse and it. Here we go. 1 second.
Can you see it on the screen there?
Yeah, I can in a second. Hold on. Well, press release. And I also did a Substack on this. Okay, so what we show in Ohio is that they had an algorithm. I'm just trying to get it so I can see it. I could see it maybe on your screen better than I can anywhere else. I'll read it from there. Okay, there we go. So Brian Katz, who was the Public Integrity Division in the office of Frank LaRose, we submitted on September 16th a report of the voter record and a cover letter. Thomas Connors, who was the attorney I was working with, Thomas is in the Mendenhall Law Group in Akron, Ohio. He said that the Paquette's initial review revealed that voter identification numbers in certain counties were assigned by an algorithm that permits a hidden means of tracking voter registrations. Okay, so the algorithm wasn't in all the counties in Ohio, but it was in a few of the bigger ones. And this
probably the heavily Democrat ones.
Heavily Democratic.
That's what I would think. Yeah.
That's
hide it in one of those big counties like that. Yes, algorithm.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So now if you'll scroll down a little bit, what we also say is that this is of intelligence grade. So the 3 counties were Franklin, Lucas, and Montgomery. Okay, so those 3 counties, the algorithm was present, and it was a modulus 8 scheme, which is a very complicated mathematical scheme. And it permitted the creation of non-existing voters. Okay, so now what you do with this is that the first step, if you're going to create a false voter scheme, it's like taking a deck of cards that you get from the manufacturer. You can't just put the marked cards in the deck because the deck is ordered from the high card of the high suit to the low card of the low suit, and your marked cards would be the ones out of order. So you shuffle the cards. So the modular 8 scheme shuffles the voters in these 3 counties so that they don't get a voter ID that's the same sequence as when they registered. If you registered number 1, you should get number 1. If you registered second, you get number 2. But when you use the modulus, you're assigning different numbers, which produces gaps in the records where you can duplicate, modified duplicates. You duplicate, so there may be 4 Jerome Corsis in Ohio, and 3 of them have different birth dates, but they all look like legitimate voters because they're planted in the deck such that you'll only see 1 record at a time of my 4, and they each get a legitimate state ID. That means they can all be voted in a mail-in ballot scheme. And what the computers do is they know where these marked cards are. They say we need 5,000 more votes. 5,000 more of their modified duplicate voters request a mail-in ballot in the machine. It's printed and run through the tabulator machines. Even though the voter doesn't exist, the voter IDs match of the fake voter that requested the ballot and the ballot that was printed. So now you've got a certifiable vote. And that's possible in Ohio. Okay, now we didn't go through and find out if it was done in Ohio, because once Trump won, and also some of the Senate and other elections went very favorably in Ohio for Trump. Trump was probably one state where it was too big to rig without us catching it. And so therefore, but
yeah, let me ask you a question there. So you're talking about duplicate voter registration numbers. Wouldn't that be a red flag?
Yes.
I mean, a really easy red flag to see?
Yes, it is. And, for instance, in Wisconsin, we found like 2 million of these and 7 million voters.
Okay, but how does it stay on the voter rolls when it's so easy to see that?
It's only easy to see it if you sort to find out how many of my name and my age are in the voter roll, but yet have a different address. Okay, so if you sort these in the cards so that you only see one at a time, that looks like a legitimate voter. Because you only see one Jerome Corsi, you haven't sorted to see that there's 4 Jerome Corsis. Okay, you have to run data searches to scrub the data to find these modified duplicates. And the states don't do this. They don't sanitize their databases. They don't remove inactive voters. They don't look at duplicates that are created this way because they're hidden unless you're doing a search of the database that's looking for them. So we start out, we say how many voters are the same name, same first name, same last name, and then same age, or first name, last name, same email, first name, last name, same phone number. And that's when you start finding thousands of these duplicate records. And that's the critical factor.
Okay, so just so that I understand, how do you, if I download the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections and I download their database, I could sort it by voter ID number.
Yes, you can.
Wouldn't I see Jerome Corsi 20 times,
You would.
100? I would.
You would.
Okay. I could
Okay,
just
so-
do that through their database.
Yeah, you could do that through their database.
Okay.
And
Well, it seems like an
then
easy thing to catch, though. It seems.
Well, it should be. Okay, but when the states where we find it, they don't search this way. You have to be, okay, see, the election officials are not trained to be official database managers. I've been managing databases, since I was at Case Western Reserve University as an undergraduate when I was, in my teens. I've been running elections. I used to go to WJW downtown on Euclid Avenue and with my political science professors and run the computers and tell them who was going to win an election because we knew how many votes they had to get out of which precincts to win. If they didn't get those votes, we knew they were going to lose. Or if they got more votes than they should have gotten, we knew they were going to have a likely sweep. And we could always predict them. So, but the people who run the state boards of elections are not political scientists and they are not database managers. And so they don't scrub the databases the way I would scrub a database. Now, what President Trump is doing, and he has an executive order to this effect, which says that all the states have to have a voter ID. Okay, so you throw out the existing. Ohio will be required to throw away the current voter registration database because it's too corrupt to be repaired. Take a lot of work to repair this database. It's got codes and secret codes in these counties, and we've only begun to analyze Ohio. We probably find more if we analyze more. But Ohio is ridden with codes, and they're dangerous because at any time the criminals can decide to activate and use those codes. They may not use them in a particular election like 2024 in Ohio, but they may use them in 2026. And then they go say, we're going to steal Congress in the midterm election, so the algorithms get used to elect Democrats.
Right. So it's just like with, okay, so we've got a big U.S. Senate race coming up, so they could just use the algorithm to get Sherrod Brown across the finish line instead of John Husted. Let me just ask if, let me go around here. Brian, do you have a question for Dr. Corsi?
Yes, I am involved in Lake County. I'm a poll worker, and we have talked extensively to the Board of Elections, and we haven't. I'd like Dr. Corsi to tell me, how can I go to the Board of Elections and say, can you prove or disprove that there's nothing that Dr. Corsi is saying, this algorithm, is it in our database? Can they determine locally if the algorithm is in their database? I guess that's my question.
The Board of Elections isn't going to help you because they're going to say, no, we're the gold standard. We went and we eliminated the dead people. We eliminated the people who moved. Well, those aren't the votes that the criminals are planning to use. They're planning to use the doubles that they've created that are in your database that you don't know are there. They plan to use the ones that they've manufactured and are now going to hide back into the database to make it difficult for you to find them. You know, a database of millions of records, every record can look like it's legitimate because it's got a voter, it's got a date of birth, it's got an address, okay, and you don't know that this, you know, there's different techniques we can use. We can go in and say how many voters were registered at the county courthouse, how many voters were registered at a local post office box, okay, because when they harvest votes, they sometimes go out and get hundreds of ballots. People sign that they want to register, and they then sign to send the ballot to an address where the person harvesting the ballots gets the mail-in ballots and fills them out. Those look like legitimate votes. So a lot of things that are in the database look legitimate until you apply these techniques to find out which ones are the likely fake votes. So when you get 50 votes, they're assigned to a local precinct, and that's their address, and all the ballots go to some individual who harvested them. Probably that's harvesting in a nursing home or homeless or people who are transient one way or the other. And those people may have existed, but they're certainly not planning to vote. And the mail-in ballots get sent to the person who's harvesting them, who then can fill them out the way they want to fill them out, unbeknownst to the person who registered, because that person's likely gone. Okay, so there's different ways you can sort through these databases to find the suspects. And one way is to say, okay, how many same name matches are in the database? Now, how many same name, same age matches? Okay, that's where you start finding hundreds of thousands of duplicate records. And Ohio's going to be no different. Ohio will have them. And then these counties in particular where the algorithms are placed are going to be the counties where they have the most of them. And these will likely be very important counties with Democratic votes or votes that they want to get. So for instance, up in the rural counties in Ohio, they're not going to place algorithms because they're largely Republican. And suddenly if a Democrat won by 20 points, in a county that is Toledo or somewhere where there's not known to be that many Democrats, it would stand out. But in counties where Youngstown or Columbus or Cleveland, or Dayton, Akron, the Canton, Dayton, Akron, these are counties where there's enough Democrats that if it swung 5 or 10% in favor of the Democrats, it would be credible, even if those were made up votes.
Are you saying then, Doctor, you're saying that it's all in the database. Is there any way for them to create, like through the internet or something like that, add names or something that's not in the database? They're able to do that as well?
Well, the crime is that someone has penetrated the computer, and they've gone into the computer, and they've added codes which permit them to create these doubles and hide them. Okay, so for instance, I say, your children are born, you talk about your children. Our firstborn child was good at sports. Our thirdborn child was good at music. Well, you don't have to tell your wife who the thirdborn child is. You both know who you're talking about. But in the state, they say, no, your firstborn child is number 1, but your secondborn child is number 12. Your thirdborn child is number 23. And then 34. They just add 11 to each of your children's numbers, and they put other people's children in between your children. Because, see, they've sorted the cards. So therefore, it's no longer in relationship to when you registered. It's the algorithm that determines your voter ID. And that's not in an order, that's a natural order. So you shuffle the cards, and now you insert your mark cards where you know where they are. And when you need the mark cards, you pull them out and you vote them or play them.
So a lot of this, I'm going to get Jonathan here in a second. So a lot of this is all early voting, though, correct? There's no way to really do anything on the day of election when you're showing an ID and writing your signature in the booklet and all that.
It's mostly mail-in ballot fraud. It's mostly mail-in ballots. Okay. Harvesting ballots, where they're going out and getting a lot of people to register who are not going to really vote and may not even be real. I mean, nursing home where people are largely incompetent, and you're going to get their ballot. You're going to vote it for Democrats. All you want is their signature and their date of birth, so you can say this person registered, but send the ballot to me. So harvesting is a problem. And then secondly, going into the computer and creating these duplicates and hiding them by modifying the record a little bit so it doesn't look like the same person until you really do an analysis. And to find out it's the same person, you probably have to go out and canvass some of these records. Well, the state does not get mail-in ballots. They don't match it precisely to the signature they've got on file. They certainly don't go out in the community and find out if that person exists. The mail-in ballot is taken as legitimate as long as the number of the mail-in ballot matches the voter ID number of somebody who voted. They don't go to see if that person who voted is a real person. They don't take that extra step.
Yeah,
so because
they really don't. No, I agree with that. I think the mail-in ballots is where all of the corruption is happening. We got to stop that.
It's not all of it, but it's a significant component of the cheat,
right?
Of the potential cheat. So first thing, Dr. Corsi, thanks again for coming on and joining us. For anybody who is interested in a long-form discussion, Dr. Corsi was kind enough to join me on my podcast, Unwoke.Academy, about a week and a half ago. We discussed some of this and more. So in addition to tonight's conversation, you can go and find that on Rumble, X, etc. I am, several of us actually, are keeping an eye on the chat on social media. So if you're watching this and have questions, please do forward us your questions. We'll try to get them answered. But piggybacking on Brian's question, and then I want to kick it back over to Dr. Corsi for his opinion, but we effectively created an environment where the issues with the voter rolls are easy when we abdicated responsibility at the local level. So we used to, as counties, evaluate the effectiveness, the truth, the merits of our voter rolls. But years ago, we just sort of decided to send all Ohio 88 counties, send it to the state, and then the state does something with it. So I want to put that in context for people who may not know what that looks like or what that means. Imagine your block, wherever you live. You have a pretty good estimate of the exact number of people on your block. In your county has a pretty good sense of the number of people who live in that county. The state has a less of an understanding of how many people might live on your block, for instance, or how many people live in your county. The further away from local counting and tabulation and understanding, the more room there is for error. For instance, just looking at the state of Ohio, people estimate that there are, what do we have, 12 to 15 million people or something. There's a large margin in there. And that then creates this sort of gulf into which you can insert fictitious and fabricated voter roll data. Isn't that the case, Dr. Corsi?
You're exactly right. And that change occurred in 2002 when HAVA was passed, the Help America Vote Act. And HAVA said that the counties would give over their data to the state Board of Election or Election Commission, whatever it's called. And that the counties would no longer give the voter IDs. The voter IDs would be assigned at the state. Okay, and now the state then can apply a numbering scheme to how they're doing this. They don't have to be sequential in terms of registration. That's where the first kind of fraud occurs. But you're right. I mean, for instance, I grew up in Ohio. I grew up in East Cleveland. Well, I knew a lot about East Cleveland. I knew a lot about Cleveland. But I didn't know very much about Youngstown or Cincinnati. I knew more about Akron, Canton because it was close by and we would visit it. You know, I visited Toledo. But when you get to the really rural counties of Ohio, I rarely travel to the rural counties of Ohio outside of the cities. Well, again, those counties would know the people. And a county supervisor could say, well, I don't think this looks right. But when it gets to the state level, and you get to Frank LaRosa's office, well, I'm not even sure Frank LaRose has been in every county, or his staff has been in every county. So they don't really know who they're dealing with. These are just names and numbers. And that's where the Democrats, I think, where the fraud, by moving it there, they created the opportunity to plant these codes in the database, to reorder the database, and then to run it through the computers with fake names, provided they could harvest votes and go out and get 400 people, pay somebody to get $10 a name, 400 people. That could be worthwhile doing. Getting all the ballots sent to one common location, which then fills them out for Democrats, or creating fictitious voters in the database. So in Ohio, with these algorithms, since 2002, the algorithm started going into the states around 2004 and 2007. Well, how many elections in Ohio have been voted in by the algorithm, not by the voters? We don't know. And then there's numbering schemes where you say every 10th voter, we can insert one. In the next 10, we can insert another one. Well, in a database of millions of voters, you can insert a lot of fake names, and they'll be hard to find. Well, the criminals aren't stupid about this. They are understanding that our elections today are run by computers, and the fraud starts at the voter registration. I'm not talking about the votes that are calculated in Dominion computers and all the rest. I'm saying the fraud starts at home, the State Board of Election. Most State Board of Election officials don't know that the fraud is there. I'm not saying that Frank LaRose is dishonest. I happen to think he's honest. But he doesn't want to admit that he hasn't done the job. Doesn't want to admit that there's something in the voter roll he didn't know about. And so therefore they say we've got the gold standard, and since the election went for Trump, they say don't worry. Okay,
right, everything's fine because Trump won. Here's the problem I have with, like, say, Frank LaRose and some of the other statewide candidates is, Frank LaRose, he is now going to be the auditor. He's switching gears. He's switching seats now. He's going to move from Secretary of State to the auditor. And now we're going to have Robert Sprague, who was the treasurer. He's going to now take that seat. As soon as LaRose gets up, he's going to pluck down and take the seat of Secretary of State. That these guys are not experts when it comes to election integrity. And they bring a lot of their same staff with them because the staff is loyal to them. They don't know anything about election integrity. But the last thing they're going to do is let you suspect that they don't know something about election integrity. So it's always going to be the gold standard.
I know Mr. Robert Sprague. I've talked to him about the algorithms. I think he may do a pretty good job of being attentive to this. And so therefore, of all the officials in Ohio I've talked to, I think he understands perhaps most the possibility of fraud. As I've talked to a number of people in Ohio, having grown up in Ohio, I went to Case Western Reserve for my undergraduate education. I went to Cleveland St. Ignatius High School. I was born in East Cleveland. And a long time ago, I left Cleveland in 1968 to go to Harvard. But, I've known Ohio over the years. My family continues to live there. And I visited Ohio and follow it. Still follow the sports teams that I grew up with. And so, the issue is Ohio, I think, is a state that this can be founded. Now, what President Trump wants to do is eminently reasonable. You get a voter ID. Okay, so you can't drive a car without a driver's license. Okay, but the motor voter has a possibility of a lot of fraud. So you have a voter ID. You've got to come in and you've got to prove who you are. And you have a right to vote. So you have to prove you're a citizen. Okay, now that can be done through a number of different ways. Passports are a very good way of doing it. Birth certificates are another. But you can show that you're a citizen. And now so what's unreasonable about that? And then the second requirement, proving you're a citizen, will get out all the non-citizens from voting. And, when you go then to paper, so you've got a mark on a paper that no machine has changed, and you follow the trailing of that paper precisely. So you see people are, voting the paper and putting it in the box, and you can tabulate those. And, you can cheat any way you want to. You can cheat with paper too, but it's a lot harder to cheat with paper. And then you can do the calculations starting within the county and then tabulate that up to the state. And the rules can be designed to eliminate cheating. What the rules today are designed to do is to encourage cheating. And the computers are inherently untrustworthy because a computer can be hacked and the data modified. Now, what Tulsi Gabbard said at this press conference, it was a cabinet meeting press conference, she said, we know the computers have been hacked and the votes can be changed. And she was implying that this could be foreign interference. This is at least intelligence agency level complexity. It's a miracle that Andrew Paquette found it. He's truly a genius. And I understood it because the political scientist was able to explain it in reasonable terms to people. But because it's so complicated, people say, I have a hard time following it, or this couldn't be the case, or I can't believe this. But just look at the fact that we found it and made a big deal of it before the 2024 election. 2020, the battleground states, Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Arizona and the others, stopped counting the election night. And then all these mail-in ballots come in. And suddenly when the counting resumes, Biden's ahead and Biden goes ahead and wins. Now, that's not accidental. That's the use of the algorithms to change the election. In 2024, the battleground states stopped counting only when they finished tabulating the votes on election night. And they reported on election night for Trump. They didn't bring in mail-in ballots. If they had, we would have caught them. So because we were aware of
that's true,
and were prepared to catch them, they didn't do it. But they did it in down-ballot elections. And we're now starting to catch them there.
Okay, so when you have this whole algorithm, and Andrew Paquette came up with it, and he found it in Ohio, have you presented that to Frank LaRose?
Yes.
And have you looked at the database? Is there any way to prove that, hey, this cheating either took place or could take place or anything like that?
I think in 2024, Ohio did not use the algorithms in any extensive degree because, again, we had made a point of it.
Okay.
We would have gotten the voting data. We could have looked for it. But again, in Ohio, it was pretty much of a Republican sweep. And the Republicans did very well in Ohio. Again, it's both a factor of too big to rig and the fact that we were watching for it. Okay, but that doesn't mean in the election I'm concerned about now, even in Ohio, is 2026.
Right.
The midterm election.
The midterms. Midterms are going to be huge, absolutely huge. Let me get Brian in. Brian, do you have a question for Doctor?
Yeah, I do have a question. Dr. Corsi, have you ever spoken to the FBI about this algorithm? And the reason
Yes.
I ask is I've had some personal experience with the FBI where I was really interrogated for an hour and a half with the possibility of somebody trying to break into the Lake County computers. And they said to me that the FBI views someone trying to break into a computer like picking a lock on the door. So I just wonder, have you ever spoken to the FBI about this algorithm problem?
I have to some extent, but mostly others have, like Andrew Paquette has. So, for instance, in New York, a major effort was made to show them, because Andrew Paquette cracked the whole scheme in New York, and it was massive. I mean, there's millions of duplicated records in New York, modified duplicates. Well, the FBI locally said this is very interesting. They reported it into Washington. And of course, the Biden FBI, which was heavily weaponized and politicized, did nothing. So the investigation stopped. Okay, now, What Donald Trump has done by giving this to Tulsi Gabbard is he's saying this is a national security problem. Okay, now Donald Trump, for instance, fired the heads of the National Security Agency. He's saying that our elections have been penetrated and hacked. Foreign nations are involved. And what Trump is saying now is essentially he's going to put an end to it. Okay, now come on out. Yeah,
we're doing our video.
We're
So,
here.
Here's
the guys here with me today. We're all here doing creating Veterans First.
absolutely, yeah.
We're a new organization. Here we are.
So we're taking care of veterans.
Hello.
We're knocking out funding. We made a lot of funding contacts down here in West Palm Beach. We're going to see about what we can do with some golf outings and maybe some Mar-a-Lago things and other fundraisers. And right now,
This
we're-
is Derek Storms. Derek Storms is the general counsel for the
Where am I?
organization.
Where am I? Don't
Just
miss-
come back, right there.
Yes.
He's general counsel for Veterans First LLC and Veterans First Foundation, which we're setting up.
Yeah. So we got Matthew over here. Right now we're cooking. That's why I got avocado all over our hands. So
They're about ready to. I'm out here. So they're about ready to.
It smells good, by the way. I can smell it all the way over here.
Yes, well, that's the
delicious,
same in the
delicious.
That's
Now-
the same. I hope that's not burning, Matthew. Is it?
Oh, you better get it if it's
They're
burning.
coming in to move
Better
me is
get
what
it.
they're coming in.
No. We're
Okay.
not. I was
Well,
actually-
listen. We'll go a few more minutes and then we'll let you go eat. But this is great information, Jonathan. I'll let you get in here for a second.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Hey, thank you again.
We
yes,
we
sir.
took an Airbnb because there's about 6 of us here, so we
Uh-huh.
this is kind of military
So
style.
you're hanging out. Where are you hanging out at? Whose house
This
is
is
that?
West Palm Beach. We're in West Palm Beach, Florida.
But I mean, whose house are you
No,
hanging
this
out
is
at?
Airbnb.
Oh, Airbnb. Okay.
We went to an Airbnb and there's about
Gotcha.
6 or 7. They just turned out the light.
They're hungry. They want to eat.
Turn off the
Hey,
light.
give us a
They're-
couple
they're
minutes.
about
A
to-
couple
they're
minutes,
about
and
to
we'll
evict me, I'm
let you
telling
go
you.
eat.
Wrap it
All
up,
right,
Jonathan.
Jonathan.
So, here we go.
Yeah,
Ask a couple
we're
more
almost
questions,
done.
then we'll wrap it up. Yeah.
We're about to wrap this up, but one of the things I want to encourage people to think differently about, and this is an appeal to you, our listening audience, and that is stop being complacent about our elections. Think of
Yes.
our election systems as critical infrastructure. When we think about our U.S. military, our tanks, our weapons, our soldiers, our radios, all of that, our border patrol, that is all critical infrastructure. And the idea that we've lost track of the notion that the systems that we use to count and tabulate our votes is somehow migrated into the hands of people that we can't oversee. We cannot clearly articulate and clearly understand and audit the things that they're doing. We need to fix that. And hats off to Dr. Corsi and people like him who are out there tackling these fundamental critical issues to the citizens of the United States. Dr. Corsi, what can average citizens be doing to get the word out, to turn up the heat on this thing?
Well, I think, first of all, we are getting a new round of contributions to God's Five Stones. So donations are greatly appreciated right now. And we're continuing to investigate because we want to press this all the way to the midterm elections. What I think is going to happen is you're going to see a series of actions by the Department of Homeland Security, because Donald Trump, under Article 2, as the powers of Commander-in-Chief, if he declares our elections are a national security emergency, he can have massive powers come into the states and demand that these voting problems be solved by throwing out the existing voter rolls and demanding voter IDs, demanding proof of citizenship to register, and then paper ballots. And these rogue judges won't be able to prevent it, because under the powers of Commander-in-Chief, a national security emergency, the courts can't intervene. And that's going to be, I think, that's why Donald Trump essentially bypassed the Department of Justice. So you can see in for instance, in Arizona, Department of Homeland Security just came to an agreement. They're going to remove non-citizens, like thousands of them, from the Arizona database. Now, that actually could invalidate the 2024 election. And this is just beginning to happen. So I think the intelligence agencies are going to get much more involved in solving this problem. And then they can refer cases to the Department of Justice for prosecution, for investigation and prosecution. And at that point, Pam Bondi will have no choice but to set up a task force or to assign Department of Justice attorneys and FBI agents with subpoena power to do the investigations. But I think this is going to be led out of National Intelligence, the DNI, Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. I don't think it's going to be led by Pam Bondi as Attorney General and Kash Patel. I think the orders are going to come to them, and then they'll get involved. But Donald Trump, if he needs to, can simply declare a national security emergency and take over and demand that the states quit this nonsense and get voter IDs in place. I think it's coming.
That would be fantastic. That would be fantastic. Well, here's your website for one last time here, God's Five Stones. And so people can go to that website and read up on the work that you're doing, God's Five Stones. Dr. Corsi, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. I know you're hungry, so we'll let you go eat.
Whether I'm hungry or not, these guys are hungry.
Yeah.
I'm about to be evicted. So.
Yeah. Well, you have a good night. Thank you for taking the time. And
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. Really appreciate
Always
it.
Always a pleasure. I hope to be back in Ohio soon. We'll be doing some other things in Ohio this coming year and the rest of this year. And I still have great fondness for Ohio.
Oh, yeah.
And God bless. Thank you all very much.
Once an Ohioan, always an Ohioan.
Once a Buckeye, always a Buckeye.
Yeah. Have a good night. Thanks again. God bless you. God bless you.
Dr. Corsi.
All right, guys. Have a good night. Salute. We're going to call it a night here. And you guys have a good one, okay? Take care. Talk to you soon.
See you, John.
Good night, all.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.